Hey guys, Professor Luke here. I'm putting together this video to give you a little bit of feedback about the exam one, the wrapper, and then I'll give some more general feedback about the class. So I got some of the notes here because I want to talk about several different things. So let's get started. I'm going to switch to the wrapper first, and then we'll talk about a little bit of what something I shared before about the higher level of understanding compared to the lower level of understanding. And yeah, we go through those things. So let's get started. Yeah. So this is the part one wrapper that you can see here on your screen. Hopefully this is still recording. Yes. Okay. So the part one wrapper here. I want to emphasize a little bit of those questions and why it was important to take it in order. So you notice now that on the top of page 2, you have the key of what it was a good studying technique and what was kind of a like not optimal studying technique. So everything with a plus is good, everything with an asterisk is bad. No, not optimal, really not useful that much. And so when you go through your study habit, I really wanted you to be honest and go through it first without knowing the key to those little symbols. So if you did that, that's better for you because unconscious bias is a real thing, but you cannot be like you're not aware of it. It's unconscious. So the key here, when you identify the time you spent, you really want to think of that time. It shouldn't be more than twice the amount of time you spend on learning the material. So, and I'm talking about that time as in going through the PowerPoints. So if you were in a seated class, it would be twice as much time spent on the class every week as time spent in the classroom. So if you have 3 hours of lectures and three hours of lab, it's 6 hours total. You shouldn't spend more than 12 hours at home. You shouldn't spend less than 12 hours at home during that week to be successful. We are double, so it's 2 weeks in one, so it's really intensive, right? Which means that when you spend in 3 days the equivalent of 6 hours to learn, and maybe you don't spend 6 hours, but let's say like 3 hours on lecture to learn the PowerPoint, to go through it, take your notes, watch the videos, you should spend 6 hours during the 3 days understanding your material. And the same thing the next 3 days. And you have the labs at the end. So you really have to look at it this way. Double the time compared, like understanding things compared to just being exposed to things, which is just looking at the PowerPoint, taking notes, watching videos that I make in my short videos, or the videos online, or videos that are additionally available to you. Okay, the spreading out, you really need to start early. If you do it at the end or if you do it the last weekend, you're just gonna fail. It's not gonna work because that strategy of cramming works when the professor asks you questions about knowledge, about do you know what a cell is? Can you choose among those four options what is a cell? I'm not asking you that. That's high school. I'm not gonna ask you do you know. I'm asking you do you understand. That's college. And that's the standard for this class. You need to understand things. I don't want to have a student getting 100% and not being able to explain how hydrogen bonds explain the change in density of water when it's freezing. Like that's something you need to understand. You can know that water has a lower density when it's frozen. If you don't understand why, that's not useful because in 2 months you forgot about it. So understanding is how to use the knowledge you learn in one aspect of your life and transfer it somewhere else. This is an invaluable skill that you can learn rather than just knowing a fact and forgetting it. I know a ton of facts. I don't remember half of them, but I understand a lot of biology and I remember all of it. So that's the key here. Doing in group is essential to do it in group, and I'm going to go back to it in a minute. So then about those activities, you should realize based on what I shared with you in announcement before, that reading textbook is not useful to read it. You need to have a strategy when you read it. There is more of that on one of the announcement early in the semester with the SQL method, I think. I may mess up the acronym here. Working on the study guide, this is really helpful. The study guides are prompts. It's forcing you to engage with the material and think about it. Writing your own notes, it's essential as well because it asks you to have that additional layer of understanding. Not you don't rely on what I give you, now you rely on what you understood of it, and now you need to make sense of it. The material in each lesson modules, of course, that's important. Key concept in your own words, essential as well, because otherwise just copy pasting definitions is plagiarism. You want to write it in your own words, and believe me, there are no two people who write things in the same way. Everybody has their own way. Since the dawn of time, it's exactly as the number of chess games in the world. It's impossible to cover them all. Same thing for people writing stuff. Nobody writes the same as someone else, unless you copy, and that's plagiarism. Rephrasing ideas, that this asks you to reframe things in your words in a way that you understand, because just knowing how I understand things and how I convey it to you through my notes, my PowerPoints, my videos, it's one thing. But if you don't make that knowledge your own, but rephrasing it in a way you understand it, that's something that you won't understand. And if you don't do that, you need to make it your own. So it means rephrasing things in your own words, rephrasing concepts in a way you understand. I try to provide you a lot of avenues to understand the same concepts in different ways. But at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own learning, and you need to find the way in which you make things click for you. And I'm here to help you do that, but it's really important that you do that on your own. Now, that conceptualizing concepts in a new way is this similar idea. The flashcard here, that allows me to have a segue into that document I shared with you last week or the week before. I think it was last week, which was all about those LOCS and HOCS, and those are like lower order cognitive skills or higher order cognitive skills. We do want you to be in the HOCS, those two here. You want to be at the application and analysis level when you prepare for a student, for an exam. Those columns here contain activities that you can engage in either individually or in group to prepare for the exam. If you have done that all your life, that's normal. That's what is asked for any person in high school. You need to be able to label diagrams, list characteristics, quiz yourself flashcard. The flashcard is great, but it's only knowledge. It's not understanding. So you can do all those things, and you should, but you shouldn't agonize over that, because more than knowing the terms, the specific terms, and in many cases when people have written in the essays the wrong term for things, I just flagged it, said it was the wrong term, gave them the right term, but that doesn't mean they didn't understand the idea. Not knowing the specific terms just doesn't mean nothing. And even better, knowing the specific terms, being able to puke out all the specifics in the right places, yeah, great. You may know all of those things. Do you understand it? Maybe not. So you shouldn't focus on knowing by heart. It's not rote memorization what we're doing here. You should focus on understanding. Yeah, like as I mentioned before, you may not know exactly the triglycerol molecule of fatty acid, the exact atoms that are in that molecule. You may not know all the conformation, all the different bonds between all the atoms that make the triglyceride, but you understand that they are tri in glyceride, which means there will be 3 fatty acid chains attached to that triglyceride molecule. You also understand that that glycerol is hydrophilic, lacks water. And so based on that understanding of fatty acid, when we talk about phospholipids, now it's only 2 fatty acid chains, but you realize, oh, there's a polarity in that molecule because triglyceride was also polar in the way that triglyceride, the glycerol, was hydrophilic. So now the head of this phospholipid is hydrophilic. Instead of knowing just basically that hydrophilic head of a phospholipid in the bilayer of the membrane, you understand it now. And now you make sense of the knowledge. And that's when you need to do things in the comprehension and application level and analysis. The comprehension, I argue, is also a little bit of a higher because you do it in your own words. As if you do it, you provide examples. But this is the most important part. I will emphasize that the group work is essential. I've seen some of you starting a study group. This is great. You don't need to know all the class material before you go into your study group. You can go into your study group when you still don't know half of the material. But the key is that by quizzing each other, by explaining, where do I have here? practice writing. Take turn, that one. Take turn teaching your peers. That one, when you take turn teaching your peers, even if you don't understand the process entirely, being wrong is part of a learning process. I am wrong every day of my life. We need to all accept that we are wrong constantly. That's the only way to move forward. If you're afraid of being wrong, if you're afraid of a judgment of others, you are going to be stuck where you're at and you're not going to progress. And it doesn't matter if you know everything already or if you don't, you're going to be stuck. I have seen plenty of people that were in grad school with me and that knew way more than I did, but they were afraid of being wrong. They still at where they at or where they were at. Now I'm way beyond that because I accepted that I would be wrong. I stumbled upon the way. I made mistakes. I stood up and I said, I was wrong. I'll do better. And by doing that over and over again, you learn. If you just know things and you stop where you're at and you say, no, I don't want to say anything wrong, you're not going to know more. And so taking turns teaching to each other, it's essential because you learn when you teach it to someone else. When I teach in lectures to students, I learn. They don't. They learn when they do the work on their own or when they do the work in the classroom when I force them to do activities. So you learn by teaching, and other people learn by hearing another student's point of view of that concept. So that's essential here. You can do it individually. You have a little different process to do that. Doing graphs, doing concept maps, contrasting ID. This here, compare and contrast to ID or concepts. That was your exam prompt right there. You could have done that in preparation for the exam, and you would have nailed the exam prompt. By the way, on the exam prompt, on the essay prompt, great job everyone. I'll get back to it. It was amazing. I really like that. Okay, so enough of all that. Just make sure you go back to those documents here and the exam wrapper, and you engage in the right studying behavior. It's not about studying more. It's about studying better. It's not about getting that number of hours higher and higher until you just kill yourself at it. Every semester, I have students who always tell me after the first exam, I've studied so many hours, I spent so much time, and yet I failed. I don't understand. And every semester, I come and I tell them, well, it doesn't matter if you spend 20 hours reading the textbook, for example. Not that they did that, but if you just do that or 20 hours doing flashcards, that doesn't matter for the exam. You should not do 20 hours flashcard. You should do some, but then you should engage in all of those different activities that are here at the application and analysis level. If you need papers, by the way, from primary literature to analyze, ask me. I will give them to you. I will just find some papers, send them to the class and say, hey, you can look at that paper and talk about it if you want. You can even send me your thoughts about the paper. We can have a meeting about the paper. We can do a lot of things that we need to be able to rely on each other to progress because I'm focusing on your learning. Okay, now the last thing about the exam, and I'm going to switch back to the camera here. The last thing about the exam I wanted to let you know. Do not just put the exam one behind you and forget about it. That would be a mistake. Simply because things from the exam one will be on the final being cumulative. But more importantly, they also will be indirectly in exam 2 and 3. I'm not going to ask you questions about ionic bonds compared to covalent bonds, but you're going to need to know that to understand the difference, to be able to make sense of the material in the next following parts. So it's really important that you don't forget all about bonds, because when we go to chemical reaction and diorganic and zergonic that you're going to start next week, you need to understand those bonds things. When we will talk about techniques of using DNA, you better remember the 4 macromolecules, including the nucleic acids, the DNA and RNA, because when we talked about using that DNA to free people from prisons that are wrongfully convicted, that relies, and I'm explaining to you how to sequence the DNA, that relies on you understanding what is a nucleic acid base, you know, ACTG, and the U for RNA. It asks you to understand how they bond together. It asks you to understand how they bond with each other's, right? When we make the two branches of DNA that get together with hydrogen bonds, A, T, and CG, with 3 between C and G and 2 between A and T. It asks you to understand all those things. And finally, the enzymes, the proteins, you need to understand that part extremely well to make sense of when we talk about respiration and photosynthesis, because a lot of enzymes are involved in that. And so making sense of enzymes work is essential to make sense of respiration photosynthesis. The way information is presented to you as sense. We thought about it as an educative team. I thought about it personally the way I present things to you. Okay, so now I want to talk about more general things about the class. The first thing I want to emphasize is we all are here because we all have potential. You all have potentials, guys. And I know it because I've seen you, I talked to you. I mean, I know several people by name. I know Abdul, I know Tivia, I know Roxanne, I know Adrian, I know Curry, I know a lot of people, 45 of you in the class. I'm not going to name 45 people, but you get the idea. I've seen you in videos, in weekly reflection. I've seen you growing in your thoughts. You've seen me in videos. We can engage in meetings one-on-one or with groups if you need me to. And so I really wanted you to know that all of you, you have potentials. And that's what I'm seeing in you. It's the potential. I'm not seeing where you're at. I'm seeing where you can be. And that's why I keep pushing you to do all those efforts, the right type of efforts to get where you can be. Because that's what's beautiful is when a student engages in the material, with the material, grows into what they could be and what they will be. It's really important for me, for you to understand how much potential you have. You're at the start of your learning process in that class and in your college learning process. Do not think you're not worth it. Do not think you're not smart, because smartness is a muscle. Nobody is born smart. Nobody is smart. People work at it. So really, it's important to realize that you are a potential and it's your job to realize it. It's my job to help you realize it. Okay. You also are here to learn, to understand. As I mentioned before, I emphasize that a lot, but you're not here to learn to know. You're here to learn to understand. It's a wide difference between knowing and understanding. Sometimes you may not know, but you understood, and that's all it matters. It's better to be there, understanding, but not knowing, than knowing and not understanding. Okay, I'm also going to change a little bit about the policy of late work, because in the syllabus it says like you cannot turn things late. And I don't like it. I think it's stupid. I'm changing my mind. So late work will be accepted. I'm going to change the syllabus because I'd rather have someone at 11:58 taking a break and saying like I'm short on time. I'm not going to write 2 sentences and turn that on in and just fail the thing. I'm going to go to bed and tomorrow I'll work on it and I'll turn something correct to the professor by email. Let's do that. That's way better in my opinion than turning something really short on time. Because my belief is you're not slacking off. You have lives, you have things to do. I'm not coming from a judgmental way, the judgmental point of view. I will never do that. My assumption is always you have good reasons to be late. And I clearly, I'm going to be honest, I don't care if you're trying to game the system. If I catch you gaming the system, that's not going to be good for you, but that's not my game. I'm not playing that game. I don't care if you're trying to, if 1 or 2 people is going to go through the mesh of security and game the system, because what I care about is people who have lives and jobs and family and who get behind sometimes don't get penalized because of that. I'd rather, like, I'm like what the Justice Department should be in this country. I'd rather see 10 criminals walking away free than 1 innocent in prison. We should always start from there. Like people who do the work and that are trying hard should not be penalized because we're trying to catch the 1%, that scare everyone. So my point of view is students are honest. Students are trying to do the right thing. Sometimes they fall short. Sometimes I fall short. And who am I to judge? So late work is okay. You can send it to me by email later. Do that now. If the deadlines that I put, the due dates that I put, are really here to help you. So follow them as much as you can. You should still strive to follow them, because you will be penalizing yourself if you wait too long. If you just go and turn things late constantly, you're gonna penalize yourself because I'm not gonna be able to give you in-depth feedback first of all, and you're gonna be behind. And that class goes too fast for that. So I just wanted to remind everyone the due dates are still there. Follow them, turn things in. If you fall behind, but for any reason, I don't need to know why. You don't need to justify things. You send it to me, say, sorry, I'm late, period. I don't need to hear excuses because I sometimes have excuses as well. Like, I don't really care about your excuses because they are probably valid and I'm not the one to judge, okay? So that's the thing. The essays were amazing. Tremendous thanks for everyone who engaged in doing a different type than the essay, than writing, doing like drawings, concept maps, videos. I had like amazing work, and as you now notice, I don't think you got penalized for doing that at all. Essay grades were way higher than the MCQ grades. That tells me that essays was really analyzing, understanding. So you're good at that. You kind of were surprised by the multiple choice question. Now you know what's coming, you need to understand things. So you're not bad at understanding. You may have been surprised. You also probably were really short on time, and a lot of people said that. So the exam format will remain the same for exam 2 and 3 and the final exam. However, I'm going to provide everyone way more time than what you had. It was maybe stressful for people. A lot of you got short on time and didn't answer questions. So I'm going to provide more time. There you go. You see, here are problems, we find solutions. If it doesn't work, we find another solution. I don't think you got penalized for that this time around because, as I said, the top grade that was far from the top grade possible got bumped to 100%, so everybody got bumped. So I didn't grade on the curve. I just made sure that the difficulty from the exam that was intrinsic to the exam and not due to your lack of understanding were not penalizing you. So basically, if you were short on time for not being able to answer some question, and lots of people were in the same case, that shouldn't have penalized you because all the grades got bumped generally. But everybody stayed at their place. I don't even care if you were on a curve or not because that's not important to me. What important to me is your learning. And so here we go. So exam essays were amazing. Change the format of exams. Make sure you keep. So about that format of exam and understanding, the group, all the assignments in this class are here to push you to that. The group work, you notice how all those questions are just really similar to what you have on the exam. Sometimes it's like for the organelles, for example, it just tells you, oh, things are out of whack. It's for you to understand what are the things out of whack. Identify those, match them to your understanding of what organelles do, find the right organelle, and write a rationale about it. That's it. That's exactly what the exam is about. Some of the people in that assignment of organelles missed the right organelle, and yet they wrote an explanation that was on point and that made sense. They didn't lose points for not having the right answer. I judged their explanation. They were thinking about that explanation. I saw where it was missing steps. I indicated them to them. But it's not just, hey, find the right answer or you have 0. It's not how it works. It's not about finding the right answer. Several exam questions had partial credit if you were to choose another answer that was not the right one 100%, but that could make sense. But you just missed a part of the prompt that explained that answer didn't make sense. So you didn't get partial points for saying something widely wrong, but you could get partial credit for saying something that was partially okay. And that's accounted for in those exams. We are looking for understanding. Final thing I want to say, if you need to go over the exam, now that you did the wrapper part 2, if you need to go over the exams with me to look at the questions, if you need to go over any assignments with me to look at your work, if you need to do anything that you require me with, like just email me. MS Teams, you can look. Sometimes I'm available, sometimes I'm busy. Right now I'm recording, I'm busy. I'm going to go for a run, I will be available after that. But contact me and we'll talk. I can go through your exam part 1, the MCQs with you. So I can look at those questions and you can tell me like, yeah, that question, I was really dumbfounded by it. Can you explain it to me? And I will. So please use that to your advantage. I want to have a problem of 45 students trying to get to me because they need my expertise to help them. Sadly, so many times, so many semesters, so few students take advantage of that. And it might be because others find their way, and that's great. But I don't want someone to need me and not take advantage of that. I'm available. You can email me. You can find me on MS Team via text. You found me like really responsive, I hope, on those things. I'm trying to. Sometimes, of course, I do things for my own life, so I will be absent, but usually in 24 hours, I'm back to you. And we can schedule time also to work with you, and you have a reserved time frame when you are working just with me. Okay, so that's it for this video. I'm going to leave you with that. It's a lot of information, but it can be summarized in one simple thing. We are here to learn to understand. There you go. You guys have a great weekend. Take care.